It's Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs. Let's start the show with Lewis Tennant. Here we go. Guests and interviews that you're looking for with creators, innovators, and so much more. For all episodes and further info, verbalhighs.com is the place to go.
All right, welcome to Dr. Tennant's Verbal Highs, a podcast podcasted from Tamaki Makaurau, Auckland, New Zealand. Oh my goodness! Oh my gosh! It's been a treacherous ride between recording the episode I'm about to lay forth in front of you and this introduction. I've spoken before how sometimes the intros are harder to get out for a number of reasons than the actual convo. This one's lockdown related. I wouldn't have sounded this chipper a few days ago, depending on where you are when I recorded this, or where you were when I recorded this, or where you might be where you're listening, globally or locally. For context, I am in what I am branding Lockdown 2.0, the second incarnation of lockdown in Auckland, New Zealand, where we went to level 3 and the rest of the country is still at level 2. Considering most of my listeners are local, that'll make some sense or have some connection to New Zealand. Anyway, far out, man. I listened back to this episode, and about episode, it doesn't matter, very early on, someone said to me in a kind of loving, joking kind of a way, like, bro, in your intros, you you spend a whole lot of time, like, sort of saying where you messed up or you made a mistake or where the tone was wrong in the episode. And so I've made a point of not doing that for ages. Like, I was doing it knowing that you can kind of do that within the unwritten laws of podcasting compared to radio, where you sort of learn early on not to speak of any, things not quite going the way you expected or whatever. It's sort of illusion and da-da-da-da-da-da. This is, I guess, kind of post-broadcast. But yeah, with this one, like, I listened back and I don't know if Tom will listen to this episode, but he was a gentleman, and we did have overall a pretty good convo. But I was just sort of chomping at the bit. It was the first day of lockdown, and I'd describe it as I hope many, if not all of you, understand this reference in terms of the personality types. It's a bit of a Garfield and Odie sort of a situation. I tend to, a little less forthcoming, over-animate in my kind of vocal and approach. I've got way better, I've got to say, overall at communicating in general and interviewing and conversation since doing this show. You'd hope so, at 80 whatever it is episodes. But yeah, this one, I felt like there was a little bit of incessant rambling, perhaps like I'm doing now, from myself in the episode. So stick in there. We do go some great places. It is a good episode worthy of a listen. But if it is your first one, go back, listen to some others as well. It'll probably be fine. And it's that thing of, now I've said something about it, you'll probably be listening for it and it'll become amplified, whatever it is. It may just be my neurosis, which is back to lockdown. Speaking about that, the second one has hit me far more in a lot of ways than the first. Obviously, the first was a lot longer. There was just stuff going on with work and family, two really key areas in most of our lives that were a bit skew prior to lockdown 1 even. And there was a bit of overthinking. There was the episode here and overthinking that, the stuff I've just mentioned. But I have come out the other end. This is not a cry for help. This is me basically. I even said in the last couple of episodes, I don't really want to talk about the lockdown too much because everyone's sort of battered with it, but that's more the information side of things. I think sharing how each of us kind of copes with the ups and downs is really healthy in a way, and a lot of you are regular listeners and who knows what I was talking about in the intros in those first episodes a few years back. We're up to 80, I'm going to guess 89 now. I think this is. I'm at the point where I have the luxury of trying to remember what it is. I'm going to get out of your way. I do hope you enjoy this chat. Thank you, Mr. Tom Sainsbury, for coming on in. Podcast addicts who listen to similar shows that I do, there is a homage, some might say a rip-off, an Adam Buxton moment in this podcast you might have a giggle at. if you know what I mean. A couple of other things, just the admin end of things. My website is verbalhighs.com, Verbal Highs Podcast on Facebook, at Verbal Highs on Twitter. Do reach out. You know where this intro came from? Well, it was a bunch of reconciliation in the recesses and dark halls of my mind and also things around me. But two people got in touch or tagged me in posts about the show. Shout outs to Mighty and to Matt. Those came in yesterday, just out of the blue. Hey, listen to this. This show's great. The other person PMing me and saying a bunch of nice stuff as well. Okay. So, yeah, drop me a line over lockdown if you want as a listener. I don't often hear from many of you, if any. Yeah, these are interesting and trying times. We will get through them. It's all a bit fucking weird at the moment. Sorry, kids.
This is Dr. Tannen's Verbal Highs.
I think, to be honest, the height of the chairs is not ideal for for these mic stands. Yeah. So welcome, Tom. Look, during the last lockdown, I kind of was like, I don't really want to talk about the coronavirus on the podcast and lockdown, because people have got a lot of it. But this is sudden news, right? Like, how do you feel? Because first things is, just so people know, we're recording it at 9 on a Wednesday. Community outbreak announced last night, and you kept this 9 a.m. appointment when we've kind of got onto lockdown at 12. So
I'm going to try and get as much as I can done before midday.
But it wasn't like I thought you'd be panic buying like things and stuff. This is a good nearly an hour and a half, mate.
Yeah. I've got plenty of toilet paper and plenty of produce, and the rest you can just go to the dairy. That's what I found last time. I didn't really go. I went to the supermarket twice during the last lockdown.
Yeah.
And this time,
really?
Yeah.
Not even online, just twice.
Well, with the online, we couldn't really do online around our area. They kind of closed it down. They said unless it's necessary, because can't do it physically.
Do you guys not eat a lot, or did you just do two really huge shops?
I should really explain what's going on. So when it was because it was coming for a while, and then I pre-panic bought.
Okay. Are you saying you got in before it was socially unacceptable?
Yeah. I got in. I kind of wanted to get when the kind of memes and things about the toilet paper craziness was kind of going on. I wanted to just head down there for the kind of experience of it and hope to kind of witness some of it.
Yeah.
Humanity.
Yeah.
Panicking. And one time I went, my friend came up and said, "Did you see the big fire?" I was like, "No, I missed it." So I missed the big toilet paper fight.
There was some doors taken off, wrenched off the supermarket in somewhere in Auckland last night. Yeah.
I didn't know about this.
Glennin's maybe somewhere.
Oh, right.
No, but it's a little bit more seriously. Like I didn't take on the first lockdown for what it would actually do to me. Kind of like, I think everyone had a nutty period and kind of didn't. Like, it isn't going to be 3 days, right? I mean, I know we can't future trip. So how do you feel?
Yeah, I feel like how can it just be 3 days? That's what I think. And I guess it's just about, I was kind of gung-ho for a whole lot of projects coming up and things, so I just need to kind of rethink them. But in a way, it's I've been so busy lately, maybe 3 days is good for me just to get my head around everything.
Yeah, 3 days is great. But as I say, we can't, it's like living the day, and I know you do follow the Buddhist faith, so it's kind of living in the day, right? So
there's some good research.
But at the same time, I just, we'll just wait and see. But I've got a feeling I might be in this apartment a lot more for the next couple of months.
Yeah.
So I laughed. You said you don't like. Someone's found it's that classic thing of like we were talking about researching people. Someone's found this thing online about your time at Auckland Uni and so on. And I heard you on Matt and Jerry saying that you, oh God, stop reading out about my BA. But you are on the 40 under 40 influencer page on the AUT alumni site, and most of us, you're kind of most publicly known now for obviously the Snapchat dude side of things. But your performance and your writing and what you've been doing goes deep. Over 20 years, right? I'm guessing?
Yes. Yeah.
You're the only man I know who's cited the Munch Bunch as an influence, which is fantastic.
Yeah, good.
To talk a little bit about that, because that speaks to kind of where you started doing a lot of this kind of quote-unquote creative stuff, right?
Well, the Munch Punch went way back when I was like 5, 6.
I was surprised you remembered them at your age.
I think there was another round of them that kind of came out. It was the same with the Smurfs. Like I was like, Smurfs made such an impact on me, but I think they might have been 70s cartoons that kind of came out in the 80s as well, and the Munch Bunch too. And I don't know, just something about it captured my imagination so much, and so I had little notebooks, those kind of Collins notebooks, and write out stories and do illustrations and things like that.
Yeah, and I think there's a British. A lot of those, I find a lot of the era of British shows quite eerie when I go back to them. Those kids shows, hello, those kind of thing.
Yes.
Yeah,
definitely spookiness to it, and also like the stories are bonkers. Like Rainbow is bonkers. You know Rainbow?
Yeah, of course I know Rainbow. Yeah. Because how old are you? I'm early 40s. So, but you
I'm late 30s.
Yes, I figured you're a few years younger. Yeah. Good old 2-channel world of repeats. It's probably the 6th or 7th screening of certain Munch Bunch episodes.
Yes.
But that came about because you're from a farm, right? You're not a city lad originally.
No, I grew up on a farm in Matamata, and which is like there's lots of horse racing there. It's quite a wealthy town, but my father is allergic to horses, so we had no horses. I never had horses growing up.
Right.
But we grew up on a dairy farm.
Yeah.
And we had a huge vegetable garden. So I guess, and I was kind of like intrigued by the vegetable garden as well. So like a huge one full of potatoes and things like that. So I think
are you citing influences to the your surroundings? Yeah, that makes sense actually. And was it like, were you like a working family on the farm? Because it sounds like a lot of imagination time and so on. Like, were you kind of grafting on the farm as well from a young age, or
working? There was definitely like you couldn't have a day off at all, and so like there's this kind of work ethic of like stressed. Relaxing is very hard. And I read this great article last year about millennials and stuff, like you kind of push through, like you've got to actively relax, you just can't plain old relax.
Is there kind of a performing bent in your family, or a kind of comedy bent, or both? Is there a writing lineage?
Well, there isn't, but like my answer for that would be like I'm very much part of the ethos of my family. Like there's definitely kind of comedy there. We all kind of laugh at the same things. My brother's very funny, but he's a scientist, and my sister's a nurse. Yeah. But she did do she was the first kind of exposure I guess I had to theatre, because she used to do plays. She's 6 years old, and so she would do the high school plays, and I'll come and watch them and stuff.
Acting?
Yeah.
Acting. What sort of stuff were they doing? Can you remember?
Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat was the one that made a huge impact on me. Yeah. And then Bugsy Malone. And
whipped cream, guns, and all of that. Oh no, that's the film.
Yeah.
What, to perform? Or, because I know that, cause I think you started off, you wanted to be a performer and kind of ended up writing for a while, right?
That is, I think, like my heart of hearts. And now, my late 30s, I'm really realising it as acting is my thing that I want to do.
Yeah.
And I went off on a big tangent for it because I'd be hanging out. This is a story I say, and it's the truth. When I first moved to Auckland, like I'd hang out with lots of actors, but they all took it very, very seriously.
Yeah. And like kind of thespians.
Yeah. Thespians and like very dramatic and drawing on their own. They love like doing they love doing drug addicts and things. I mean, I like doing drug addicts, but it's got to be funny. And
I think you say you like doing drugs. Well,
that too. Yep. But it took me a while to kind of find my tribe, is what they say, which is the kind of comedy bent. Yeah,
well, to put you on the psychiatrist couch, I kind of thought about that when I heard that, because a lot of your characters, I see years of observation there.
Mm-hmm. And I think it's become a kind of fine. Well, I don't know if it's because Snapchat came along. I just have this kind of Rolodex of ideas that things are constantly getting fed into every time I hang out with someone or overhear a conversation or something like that. And so, I'm not really I describe myself as shy or introverted in a way. I always kind of like, in a new situation, I always kind of sit back and just kind of observe what's going on.
I think it's not uncommon with performers, man. You hear people saying the introverted extrovert. I see myself the same way. Like, for example, like this is fine, we organise it, but I've actually said on a couple of other shows, like I'm more confident to, like, say, be asked to get on a stage and address 400 people on a microphone than I am for two people I don't really know to sit. You know, do you relate? You're nodding, relating to that.
Yeah,
I think,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's a.
Well, until you find middle ground, but if you're struggling to find middle ground, then yes, it can be very intimidating. Do
you, and be honest here, like, because you it's an oft-told story. Someone who spends years and years and years doing a bunch of stuff, and then one thing kind of like rises you to more prominence. Do you get kind of sick of talking about the Snapchat?
There was a period of a few months where I was, but now I'm like,
because strap on in, buddy.
Yeah. Now I know the name. I know the name of the game, and I know how it works.
Yeah,
and it's usually, I mean, mostly I talk about it for radio interviews, promoting something else, and you've got to kind of get people on board with who you are.
Yeah,
the most way that they know you, and then you can kind of take them off on tangents about.
And it's like when bands, like, people ask that question of, like, you know, are you sick of playing da song?
Yeah.
You know, some of them probably played them like 10,000 times. But I think the good, the kind of respectful answer is, well, no, that's kind of like what, you know, it's sort of our bread and butter kind of a thing. Yes. But hopefully the questions I've asked, I will ask, are, you know, slightly off the track of what you've been asked, although a few of them will be similar. The first thing is the Snapchat thing. This is like a technical question. I'm woefully in like one lane of social media. I was even just going to say Facebook because that's what it is. Is that still what you use? Because I don't know, as projects develop, is that still what you use for your character creation and building? And is it still kind of reliant on those filters and so on?
It is. I think Snapchat is kind of dying off a bit. You know, TikTok came a lot. Like it was a craze for a while.
Yeah.
And yes, I still use it. There's another one I use called Face App, I think. And then there's the Instagram one, which I haven't delved into. But yes, I definitely use Snapchat. That's my key.
Did you just see the app and go, my God, I know what I'm going to do with that? Or was there kind of like you'd seen other people having a tutu with it around the world or whatever? Because I've seen that guy, Kyle Dunnigan in the States, who I actually don't think is as good as you by a stretch, to be honest, but it's sort of a bunch of people started doing it around the same time. It's sort of a geeky question as to whether the technology leads the idea or sort of someone noticed someone else doing it and it led from there.
I did a few videos maybe 2 years beforehand. I was just doing videos with my face as different characters or myself, or like hidden versions of myself or politicians. Yeah. And then this technology came along and it took me about a year to get involved with it. For some reason, this, like, the things that have really impacted my life, which is Kath and Kim, Survivor, and Snapchat. I've been like, I've looked at it, I've been turned off by it for at least a year before I've been like, what is this? Let's give it a go, and then fallen in love with it.
Where does Survivor fit in? I don't see that coming through in your work.
Oh, Survivor just like...
Is it which characters end up staying? I don't know.
With, yeah, exactly. Well, Survivor's like how you live your life, you know? Like, there's a huge philosophy in it. I'm sure there'll be some kind of book written at some point. So it took me a year. So my friends were doing it and stuff, and then I was like, okay, give it a go. And then I was like, I fell in love.
I just thought, do you have like because, you know, it's such a great medium just for, I love the instant creativity these days, but it's like, do you actually kind of keep a list, even if mentally, of all the characters that have come out of your...
No, absolutely not.
No. Okay, because I wanted to know who survived the least. When it lasted like 2 hours, you're like, oh, that's terrible. I'm going to take that one down.
I never, like, I've really taken them down. Like, I've left them up there. So there's something about me owning my failures.
Yeah.
But there is, people often, like, they're like, I love this character, and they say their name, and then they describe them, and I'm like, oh, I've really made this person
I can't remember who it is.
Yeah.
Some description of who they are and what they do.
Yeah.
I guess, well, there's obviously the satire side of it, but is the imitation side, would you call that parody? I'm not sure. It doesn't matter anyway. What are you looking for, like... Is it a kind of, so just visually at the moment, just kind of a 2 or 3 key characteristics that you try and nail? Like, for example, I noticed you had Grant Robinson's lips and mouth just perfect. Like, is it just key elements, or do you spend a while kind of like honing more of the stature, the whatever is the facial expression?
I think it's like when I'm good, I will spend a lot more time kind of perfecting it. But usually, like for the last year, it's been, you know, I tend towards laziness. But with Grant, like, it was the lips and mouth that really struck me watching his interview. And then with Nikki Kay, it was like her shoulders, which struck me first. And then there was like, at one word, she slightly lisped. So I just kind of jumped on that and ran with it. And so I think it's different for each person, like what stands out to me.
Do you think that, it's a funny thing, like, how do you think you'd cope if you're at the other end of it?
If I was being mimicked?
I love that sort of thing, and I love kind of the idea of doing it, but I just realised, like, how sensitive I am as I was talking to you. I think a lot of those people are pretty, bulletproof, eh?
Yes. If it was to happen to me, I would kind of... I think I would like it at this stage. It depends what they kind of... No, I feel I even watched myself.
I don't have a big nose, you know. It's like,
I don't sound like that.
yeah.
But
yeah.
I think I've watched myself. I think I'm self-aware enough that if someone takes a piss out of something, I'm like, oh yeah, fair enough.
I love the story about like you actually forging some kind of nicer relationship with Paula Benefit as well. With Paula Bennett, it's so easy to do. Than just parodying her, because you know, a lot of what we see in the faction world at the moment is that person's that, so fuck them, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
You found the human in the parody, right?
Yeah, well, I think if you spend enough time for me, observing someone.
Anyway,
I love
Bennett,
it. That's good.
It's so easy to do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poor old Sony, you can see why he did it.
Sorry, anyway.
But I think, if you spend enough time observing someone, you can't help but admire you relate to their humanity.
Yeah, and I just think it's nice that, you know, because it's actually a podcast that Guy Maron did with Obama, and Obama talked about like how, you know, kind of most people when they're out with their kids at sports or whatever, like everyone gets on that kind of level.
Yes.
So I think we go, well, there's this we don't agree on. It needs to be constant discussion in kind of society, but you can't lose sight of the fact that we're not. It's weird. We're all kind of on a team these days, I find. You know?
I think. Well, it's because particularly for politicians, it's because they become representative of their policies, and so they don't really become humans. They're more kind of ideas.
Were you actually kind of a big politics guy before that?
I think it's slightly more than just a cursory kind of enjoyment of it.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely follow the news, but again, it's like I'm kind of more focused on what the politicians are saying about the policies rather than the policies themselves. Yeah.
And do you find your kind of like grasp or understanding or nuance of not the fictitious characters that you make, but people like we're speaking of, develops as you go?
Does my performance of them?
Well, yeah, just your understanding. You know, it's like that kind of Stanislavski approach, isn't it?
Yes. Of course it does. Yeah, but also, I think when I'm beginning these people, I spend more time kind of observing them, and then they become. What happens as time goes is they become less like them and more kind of another monster.
Speaking of Stanislavski's approach, I was thinking of that today with your fictional characters. Again, the great thing with modern media production and reception is you can have an idea and throw it up.
Yes.
But does some of them, even again, if mentally committed, have a kind of a backstory before they does the backstory develop? Do you know what I mean?
That's a really good question.
They're quite deep characters, man.
Yeah.
Well, they're not quite deep characters. It's underselling it. They're rounded characters. Yeah.
I think that there hasn't been thought, but it's kind of like. They're there, and like if you ask me questions about certain characters, I could be able to on the spot kind of come up with something. Yeah, just kind of playing on stereotypes a little bit of like who these people would be if they spoke like this. What school would they go to? So it's kind of like in the world of improv, you're like, if this is true of the character, what else is true?
Yeah, I think you're selling yourself a little short with stereotyping them though, because like some of the characters, a number of the characters have like quite a depth. Like I think of and don't worry, I'm no like guy who's going to, you know, I don't know your roster inside out. You know, people you never, you know, as you say, ones you don't recall. But you've been doing up until recently the young boy racer guy.
Oh yeah, great.
Yeah, so there's the stereotype side, which is you know, people can grasp onto that side of the humour. But you know, he's a representation of like a lot of fucking problems in New Zealand. I don't mean him and his type by any means. You know exactly what I mean, right?
Yeah.
You're commenting on like when he meets the lovely guy who gives him the petrol and he's all like, he's conflicted about it because he's like, fuck you. But he's like, oh, the guy was really nice, and then he has to go back to his mates. And where does he come from, man?
Yeah, that's really good. The first time I did him was after meeting someone like him. So it was, I kind of sat down with this. He was an extra on a web series I was doing called Educators. He's one of the boys, one of the naughty boys at the back of class.
And they're often total sweeties, just like,
yeah. But then I sat down with him, and the things that were coming out of his mouth and the big bravado, I was just like, this is hilarious.
Yeah. Did it come and go kind of a thing, depending on case?
With him, well, he was, it definitely started off bravado and being macho, and then as soon as you kind of talk to him for 5 minutes, it kind of,
Do you remember the one where his mate was trying to, I can't remember the scenario, but he was kind of trying to do the right thing by like going to work and stuff, because something to do with his partner and all his mates. No, you should coming out boy racing and...
Fuck this shit, I'm out.
So here we are after the conversation. This is the equivalent of ED in brackets in your favourite periodicals of old. So effectively, you're in the future. Confusion with Tane caused by me. I didn't mean Tane. I went back and watched Tane. Not as hopeful a fella as I thought. I was confusing Tane with his mate Dijon.
I had this Subaru hatchback which I'd lowered onto its wheels. Fuck, it was me, man. It just really hugged the road. But anyway, police confiscated that off me. Didn't stop me fucking driving though, man. But I'd still get in there without my fucking licence. And then I was like, Dijon, man, you have to do the driving, man. And Dijon was like, I can't tonight because he had to start work at he's got a supermarket job that started at 5 a.m. the next morning. I'm like, fucking come on, man, stop being a pussy. Stop being a fucking pussy, Dijon. But he's like, nah, I've got to think about, like, my mum, my grandma, because his grandma lives with him and shit. And she's, like, old age pensioner, and his mum's, like, on the sickness benefit. I'm like, fuck you, man. Fuck you, Dijon.
Matt and his lifelong regret about school C and bursary.
Yeah, good.
Did he get a B? Bursary?
Yeah,
I got a B bursary.
Me too.
Yeah. So where does that come from? Is that your neurosis, or is he someone observed as well? Because some of the ones you make up yourself must be your, like, you got to a bit of your own bloody neurosis and look at the world and.
Yeah, he's only got one, and I think he'll only ever have one. I was just thinking, I don't know where the original idea came from, but I just remembered stressing about school cert. So back in my day, it was school certificate.
Yeah.
Stressing about it, and like it was really important.
Yeah.
And of course now it's not important at all.
Yeah, and I got my driver's license about a year later, and I realised the first job I got relied more on that than like bursary and fifth form. Yeah, so learn to drive, kids.
Yeah,
and there's class there, right, as well in all of these characters, which I find really interesting because we're brought up that sort of idea that New Zealand's very egalitarian. You're kind of commenting on that as well, right? Your characters there is class in those characters.
Yeah, there definitely is.
Yeah,
and I mean it's not it's more like they happen to be of different classes.
Yeah.
So rather than me trying to consciously make a comment on class, it's more that they just happen to be.
I've got a social dilemma today.
Yeah,
I need to go to the supermarkets, but everyone's getting very full on about masks, but I didn't know to buy one beforehand. What do I do in the interim? Do I tie a jumper around my mouth, or have them at the supermarket?
That's what they are saying. Anything thick cloth you can use.
Do you have one?
I don't have one. And I was walking here today, I was like, oh, everyone's got a mask on. Oops.
I think it would be not a bad use of taxpayer money, kind of mailing a couple of out to everyone.
Exactly.
It's a lot less than the wage subsidy. Look, before we move on and letting you down by talking about every character, there's obviously the runaway success, the way I see it, of Gingerbread. He rates... He rates highly, right?
Yes.
Talk about this cat.
Yeah, well... he's been beaten. Some of his videos have been beaten now by other videos since.
Yeah.
But the first time I did them, which would have been about a year ago, this filter came up onto Snapchat, which was this orange cat, ginger cat, and I kind of did him not thinking much of it, and it just took off so much, and so there was became a demand, and then it was a bit random about when it was, and then people would be constantly sending me messages all the time asking how he was and things like that, and worried about him, and so I kind of made this thing where I just do it on a Monday, and
that's cool. Yeah.
That kind of stopped the messages coming, but then the filter disappeared a couple of weeks ago, and I couldn't deliver on Monday, so I got about 20 messages asking where he was and if he's okay.
I was going to ask that because I heard you in an interview a while ago, maybe even pre-Gingerbread, talking about how they come and go.
Yeah.
So you can't just like will that one back.
No.
It's at there. So Gingerbread's...
Yeah, Gingerbread is here at the moment, and I'm basically...
Are you here to announce that Gingerbread's...
passed away, I know. There was a state, I don't know, I was like kind of being extreme, and I was thinking, I should kill him, just...
You could do like
some kind of
see the really dark side to how he ends.
And just have a kind of closure to it, rather than him keep going.
Well, I don't often ask for questions or even announce who guests are going to be, but because you actually were coming over during lockdown, I just put it on my private page today, and I spelt his catchphrase. I think how would it be? I spelled it BRSTK, but then someone else says no, it's Prit. So I think they're right, aren't they? They spelled that PRRRE triple T. How's that sound?
I would kind of lose all.
It's
vowels.
like when we had to learn to spell zhuzh after Queer Eye. Do you remember that? Yeah.
Which is a really good. Yeah, I would spell it without any vowels. So PRRRT.
Speaking of that side of things, like I guess social media starts off. It's like, well, actually, let's talk about that first. Yeah. You got the idea, you throw it up. How does it actually get traction and where? Is there like one moment, like someone who posts a really awful tweet, wakes up and their life's over? Like, was there a moment where it kind of connected?
For gingerbread?
No, just for the whole thing.
World.
Yeah.
No, it's been just a steady graph from day one.
Yeah.
So there's been no kind of huge, like leading up to the last election. There was the week kind of beforehand, there probably would have been a huge amount of people kind of moving to my thing. But then like over lockdown, there was a huge amount of people kind of following my page. So it's always, there's never been one moment.
Right. And I asked that not because I'm asking you this number to kind of flex your social media numbers, but it leads on to something else. Like you must have a couple 100,000 followers now?
No, I don't. It's 100 and I don't know how many followers.
It's a lot for New Zealand.
Yeah.
Like with that, you're talking about the messaging. Is that side of it, like the interpersonal side, does it start to become quite a lot to manage when you're kind of this one person creating all this stuff and you don't want to just not reply to people and stuff? Like, how does that side of it? Because I know in a bigger market, quote unquote, you'd probably end up with someone else helping you with that. You know, has that been a lot to take care of?
It has been, and there's half the people don't get replied to and just kind of fester in my inbox. Yeah. Tuesday afternoon where I've got 2 hours, I'm like, let's kind of process these. And then I kind of get through some. And
have a couple of drinks and go, okay.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
And I also noticed, like, when I did a lot of radio years ago, I was always quite lucky with, back then it would have been phone calls and texts. Like, I didn't attract... quite a lot of shits like a lot of other people do, and I kind of noticed that. I haven't been deep on your comments, but generally you're treated pretty well for someone on social media, right?
Yeah.
Do you think is that an accurate observation?
Yes, I feel like there's like once a day there'll be a bad comment or something like that, but they're never that bad. Like they'll be like, you're not funny or something like that, but the vast majority of them have been positive.
Don't you think it's nice? You're making people happy.
Yeah,
it's so unusual, dude. I don't know. I mean, not making people happy, but getting the responses you do. I'm really glad that you confirmed that.
Yeah, and I think maybe it's because is there something about. It's because people can choose to switch off from me. Like, maybe my argument's wrong because celebrities get hate on them just for posting something on Instagram. So I don't know.
The ones I find amusing is people who come in and just I don't know whether they don't understand or whatever, but the parody gene or the parody, they've just missed the parody boat.
Yes, absolutely.
And they're kind of like, what's that expression? Old man yelling at cloud.
Yes.
Yeah. Do you find those?
Yes.
Music?
Absolutely. And foolishly, like earlier, a couple of weeks ago, I did a sketch for a sketch show called Sis.
Yeah.
And I played a racist security guard, and there was quite a bit of backlash to that one, and someone kind of slid into my DMs and told me their opinions of it, and I foolishly engage in it and try to explain what parody was. Yeah. And then she was like, well, I guess I'm just... I'll just stick to my gingerbread, which is much more harmless. I was like, you don't understand. Gingerbread eats birds, native birds. You're not kind of understanding the kind of how it works.
And also, I could see why you would go, okay, I'm going to respond because, like, kind of how we've been framing all of this, and anyone who kind of can sort of suss what you're doing is I don't even know that the show you speak of, but I know that there would have been obviously social merit in it, and you would have been. So I just don't see how people miss it. But yeah, it's funny seeing the comments. And with the other comment thing, I think it's like it really speaks to the modern world, what we do or don't do, whether like we're content producers or just online and so on. Yeah, what are your? I don't even mean with like people missing the joke or occasional nasty comments. Just like in general, once you've posted something, do you try and just kind of step back and let the public work it all out?
Yes,
Have you ever kind of jumped on in and?
I kind of decided. I mean, you do hear people say don't read the comments or don't read reviews and things. That's kind of filtered around, but I've put into practice, and very rarely do I. But it's the sad thing about it is sometimes they give me really. Like, sometimes they play along with a joke, and I want to kind of encourage that.
Yeah, because someone's clever in there.
And especially on Instagram, on my Instagram, and like people are totally there, and I'm like, I want to encourage this, and I think this is so funny what you've done. So what I do now is I spend the first 10 minutes just, once the video's up, I spend 10 minutes reading the comments and kind of react or love heart and things like that, just to encourage people and know that it's a good thing to do, and then I just leave it.
I get it. I'm around. I love that. It's really funny, but I've done my bit. Yeah. During lockdown, just a random tidbit that I took in. You said you watched Tiger King, and I really enjoyed it because it was just a well-produced documentary. But then, like, I did wonder whether that is kind of like the definition of punching down.
Exactly.
Did you give it a bit of thought after you watched it?
Yeah, I did. But it is punching down, but it's also like he's a
willing participant or something.
Willing participant, but also there's joy. He's. It's not like he's necessarily he is a victim of circumstance, but he's also a fighter that just keeps going. Yeah. And he's probably going to keep going right now. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, maybe I was influenced by an article, and you're right. Like he I mean, the only reason, then you might say it's punching down is because it's like very, very kind of particular class based in the States, but they don't. They let him kind of paint who he is in a lot of ways. Yeah. So you did think about that after you watched it?
I did think about it, but he's also made decisions. He's been. My kind of line in taking the piss out of someone or laughing at someone is, you laugh at the sin, not the sinner. Yeah. So like, him. What am I trying to say? So if if a politician has like a unusual take on a policy, or if they've done something really bad, take the piss out of that. Don't take the piss out of them as a human, or the things that they can't control.
Yeah. Did Carol Baskin kill her husband?
Yeah, good. Such a good call. Why not?
Yeah, why not? It's a show.
Yeah.
Come on, do another episode. Do a talking tiger.
Exactly.
We'll move on from Snapchat Jude in a sec, but are you venting frustrations or things you see that could be maybe better in New Zealand and so on with doing this as well? Is there a sort of a slightly political is a bit loaded, but is there a sort of a hey, look, wait, what's going on?
I wish I could say yes, and I think that's how it started off. But now I'm just like, it's not we're doomed and we're going to hell in a handbasket or whatever the phrase is. I'm like, it's purely enjoyment. I love people's hypocrisy. I love things going wrong. I love it. It's entertainment for me.
You were keeping it real, and that's buttery Chardonnays with Paula.
Yeah.
Have all of these characters brought you a bit more in the fore now? You've found your place.
Have I? I don't know. I don't think so. I think.
Well, you had the actors. You met these actors. They were very serious. They weren't quite what you wanted to do, but you sort of stuck around. You said, I'll write and direct for these guys.
Yes. Have I come more into the fore? I think it's. I feel like there's an inevitability about it. Yeah. I feel like there's just been this desire in me for a long time, and finally there's been an outlet.
Great.
And it's not like... Yeah. And even though I've been jumping... ship on which way I kind of get there. I've kind of struck on something. So I think it's inevitable.
How does obviously not numbers and stuff, it's like talking politics and religion at a dinner party, as they say, but there's the tyranny of population in New Zealand, but is social media kind of monetizing for you in some way? I hope you're sort of seeing some income from this as well.
There've been opportunities too, and there've been opportunity, but no, I don't monetize it, and I kind of like it that way. I like having complete autonomy over it. But what's happened, of course, is I've got so much other work from it. Of course, just I get asked to MC things or be on TV shows.
Look, you're on this podcast, mate. So
yeah, exactly. Big money. So it has been very lucrative to me, but not directly.
Yeah, because you can't, I guess I don't even know how you monetize Facebook. It's easier on YouTube and stuff with ads and so on, right?
Yeah.
Someone was not happy with you about that Pizza Hut post, but it's all right. That's good, Pizza Hut.
Yeah.
Do you have a have you had stuff that you've kind of said, it's not really for me because the product's or
Yeah, the only one is definitely not for me is KFC. Just being a vegetarian, so it was I'd say no to KFC, but everyone else I'd consider.
Come on board, everyone.
Yeah,
the tyranny of size. And what I really like about your work is that it is really New Zealand. Like I feel like because the students I teach now and so on. I mean, there's pros and cons to everything, but the more globalized things become and the more like I'm going to be an Insta star or whatever, I worry the less kind of local and localized and sort of local growing and nourishing content we'll have. I suppose that wasn't necessarily a consideration for you, right? Has it been pointed out before, though? That
I think, it's been a consideration of mine. I really liked
Guy's Travel Around New Zealand show as well in that regard.
Yes. It's what I know, I think, and to do something truthfully. I've been thinking about American politics and stuff, but you've got to be entrenched in it to do it well, I think. And so I'm entrenched in New Zealand culture and New Zealand people, so that's what I do.
Are you? Would you call yourself a practicing Buddhist?
Yes.
Okay. It's interesting in that. It's interesting for a number of reasons. It's always so interesting to talk to people about the spirituality. Was there religion or spirituality prior to kind of discovering Buddhism?
No, we went to. I went to Sunday school. My mother, for some reason, took us to church. My dad.
Yeah, that's how I feel about it with my grandmother. For some reason, I was taken there.
Yeah. Until I was about 10, and then it just kind of disappeared, and I don't really know much. I don't know why. And then 16 years later, when I was 25, 26.
So how long you went through sort of childhood to what Christian Sunday school?
Yes.
Yeah.
Childhood to Christian Sunday school, and
but your parents, would they go to the service or they just leave you at Sunday school?
My mum would go to service sometimes, but taking her mother. So I don't know if what her
sort of maybe keeping up appearances, just
keeping up appearances and helping. Yeah. Helping out, I guess.
But you weren't. Sounds kind of similar. Like you weren't reading. You weren't saying grace at meals at home and that sort of thing. Yep. Okay.
We weren't doing any of that. But I did go to youth group and things. I just remember. I remember the youth group leader really drilling in God, Jesus is there whenever you want, and you just invite him into your life. And I remember
early teens.
This was 11, 12.
Man, I don't know whether there's a prescription to that, but that awkwardy time of life anyway is when they try and get you, man. It happened to me as well.
Yeah.
Really, real heavy period of trying to indoctrinate people then. Yeah.
And I tried reading the Bible. I was like, I'm going to read the Bible every day, and then that lasted for a week or so.
I bought one home from camp. I was going to camp quite regularly. A bunch of us just quite enjoyed going to Kiwi Ranch in just out of Wellington. And then it must have finally happened where I brought the Bible home and I saw it in the bin. Mum had put it in the bin. Put it in the bin. So when did you not put your foot down? Look, what people want. There's a whole huge conversation there. I'm obviously being a little facetious, but
yes.
Did you put your foot down and go, I'm not going to Sunday school or whatever it was anymore, or did it just kind of stop?
It just kind of stopped. Yeah, it wasn't my involvement. And then I had nothing to do with it. And then I became really anti-religious in my early 20s.
Yeah. Why? That's very particular statement. Why very anti-religious?
Very anti-religious, just because I was getting. I was just getting introduced. Someone showed me this YouTube video that really kind of spoke to me. I can't remember what it was called, but it was basically showing that Jesus was just was Dionysus, the same story as Dionysus, the same story as Moses, and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, oh, okay, and started investigating it myself.
Yeah,
and then I'm just like, why does everyone believe in it? At the same time, I was kind of being introduced to Buddhism, which I think is. They call it an atheist religion, so there's no higher God.
So that's why I sort of said spiritual. Yeah.
And it's more, for me, it's more the kind of lifestyle and practice and philosophies rather than a religion.
Yeah. No, that's why I didn't frame it as such. And so, a little bit more on this, as I say. Excuse me. What does that mean? This is a beautiful moment they're talking about spirituality. What does that mean in kind of day-to-day practice?
So when you're going well and you're on top of it, you chant every morning to a Gohonzon, which is this kind of Japanese scroll in a little container.
Yeah.
And then you do activities with the other Buddhists, and you also do study. So that's a good day when you've been a good Buddhist.
Great.
And then sometimes a week go by and I didn't do anything.
Great. And nothing around things like diet?
No, not with this particular one.
And do you believe there's an afterlife?
I don't. I believe go from unconsciousness to unconsciousness. The only principle that like all of Buddhism, whenever I read any of the doctrines or any of the writings, I'm like, yes, this all makes beautiful sense. I love it. The only thing is the reincarnation, which I can't get my head around.
Yeah. No, that would make sense based on what the sort of picture you painted yourself so far. And then that's my understanding of my limited knowledge of Religions 101 at Vic Uni, a bit more reading obviously, is a lot of the appeal of Buddhism, the way I know it, is what you've spoken of. It's like it's kind of like what happens in with a lot of self-help and therapy programs these days. Is sort of the same thing of like staying in the moment, living in the day, and being kind of centered and grounded, right?
Yes, and also making wise
But it's
decisions.
a much deeper and longer doctrine practice. Yeah.
That's
And
right.
what? Sorry. And what?
And it's like always encourages you to make the wiser decisions.
Yeah. So, in something like journalism, like say with a traditional newspaper, you go, where's he going with this? You might have like two really hard-hitting stories, and then you have like your sort of soft piece, like you might be a baby lamb born at the zoo. So we've talked about your religion and your spirituality.
Great.
How was judging Fang and Fur, the cat competition? Yeah.
I love it. The fluff piece. It was...
Oh, literally.
Yeah. It was wonderful. It's... Cats are so mental. I love cats, and I love that all these kind of people were very excited about sharing the photos of their cats behaving weirdly.
And it was during lockdown, right?
During
So
lockdown,
everyone was probably dying to do something that was collaborative outside of
Exactly.
their bubbles and sub bubbles. Excuse me. Who organised that? Was it just a bit of fun or some?
It was the Fang and Fur woman who runs that company.
How many of you judged?
I've only done one competition.
No, how many of you were on the panel?
Oh, it
can't
was
have
me.
been just Tom.
No,
it
it's
was
just me.
Okay,
I know, no
what were
responsibility.
what were the prizes? I mean, what were the categories? What was going?
Well, there was one that like cat that was going craziest in lockdown was probably my favourite.
Yeah. Did you get videos or just pictures?
Some of them were videos, some of them were pictures. Then there was one was like what therapy, like who was the best therapy or the best companion.
Yeah.
And then there was one more. What was the other?
What
one?
were those ones? Were those videos of people like really the cat sitting very close? And,
and doing the paw action and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool. So it wasn't your typical like best looking cat or most athletic or
absolutely.
Or
and
whatever.
even if it had been, I would have gone for the worst looking cat.
And people could kind of like people like involved could comment and stuff. And was there any? I'm just thinking like, do you like who's the guy that did Best in Show?
Yes, Christopher Guest.
Oh, Christopher Guest. Was there any of that style scandal or like retort against your judgments?
I think it was all in good fun. I don't think there was anyone. I don't think I struck upon anyone's feelings too badly.
Oh, that's great. It's fun. Those little things during lockdown. Like I started. I figured out I could kind of pretty much run a radio station via Facebook through in that room. Anyway,
great.
With this and a couple of other bits of kit and just those little. I think I did it. Oh, however often I did it. It wasn't all the time. A couple of days a week. Just those little kind of like interactions outside of the bubble were really, really helpful for me.
Yes.
Man, like doing those sorts of things.
Yeah.
Did you have any kind of like meltdowny moments? I had one. I'm not normally like anxious in that traditional sense, but my first trip out shopping, man, it was full on. I realised when I got home how like I'd just been like I was walking through a minefield. Yeah,
because you here by yourself.
Yeah.
I didn't have it so much during it, but afterwards when it was going back to meetings, and I just felt there was this. Going back to meetings after
so
lockdown.
Months after,
going back into normal life was like, I can't I don't know how to do this anymore. But for lockdown for me was quite good in the sense I had 2 weeks. I just finished a job the day before we went into lockdown, and then it was kind of exhaustion for 2 weeks, and then I got a job for 2 weeks, which was daily Zooms. So, and then I can't remember, 2 weeks after then we were over. So,
are you finding that more like people are? Are you finding it shifted kind of practice in general? COVID or no COVID? Like, I'm finding I'm having more Microsoft Teams meetings and things like that.
Yes, absolutely.
How do you feel about that? Like, is it making you more efficient? Do you miss the sort of like human cues of doing something like this? Do you think it's better overall, or?
These are all good questions, and I'm mixed on it all.
There's no prescribed answer, man. So just riff. Yeah,
the technology and like the stress of internet for me, because I'm for some reason I'm in a weird patch of internet coverage, and having to
doing what you do. You're in a weird patch of internet coverage,
and there would be sometimes like I had to do an interview with John Campbell promoting 48-hour film competition, and it was live, and he would cut out in the middle of questions
on breakfast. Yeah. He
would cut out in the middle of questions, and I was like, I vaguely think I know what you asked, and then kind of it was just high, and then you'd hold that tension.
Yeah, right. Yeah, the technical side of it. I mean, that's it. We'll always. I mean, when with my work, because they realised I was doing this, it got to the point where it was the most random. So it was the one thing that would never have happened outside of lockdown. Our vice chancellor, which pretty much at the uni is, right up there. Somehow. Some message was spread as to what I was doing, and they were like, if it all goes really Pete Tong technology-wise and internet coverage-wise, they had booked some spots at Access Radio in Auckland, and they were going to record stuff here and take a tape down. They probably would have had to burn a CD or whatever. But I thought the other side of it interpersonally, so there's what you were talking about, the awkwardness of it. Yes. But I had a couple of meetings during lockdown where I realised like everyone that day was like nutty and kind of holding it down. These kind of... Did you have a few of those?
Yes, absolutely.
But then again, you know, what you're doing is kind of like... I don't want the world to stay like this, but you are future-proofing yourself a little bit, right?
Oh, yeah, yep.
Yeah.
That's such a good call. Like, the fact that I could just keep creating was very lucky.
Yeah. This is something I know nothing about. I just read a little bit about today. You're writing a film script and directing a film?
That's right. So it's all been written, and we were just doing... Yesterday, I just got back from a recce, which is going to go and look at a location before we film there. And we were meant to be starting on September the 27th, but we're all like holding our breaths that everything will go ahead.
And you've got, like, has it got a budget? You got an investor? Is it sort of quite a big project? Or?
Well, we did crowdfunding so it came off the back of winning 2 48-hour film competitions in a row, and then getting all that prize money, and then private money. We've got one investor, then crowdfunding, and then a little bit from Film Commission. So it's all kind of this Frankenstein of money pulled together.
So if you're doing location scouting and you're at that stage, I'm guessing, well, obviously the film's written, but you've cast it as well.
Correct.
Are you in it?
Yes, I'm in it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can you tell us anything else? What's it about? Basic premise.
Well, it's not I call it a thriller that happens to be funny rather than a funny thriller or funny horror. Yeah. So it wasn't written comedy. Comedy came secondary because this one of the main characters is my friend Chris Parker, who's very, very funny actor. So he makes it very funny. But it's basically follows a guy who's essentially had a nervous breakdown from life.
It's not funny, but he's kind of like smiling.
Yeah, exactly.
No.
And then he kind of goes for he can't deal with life, so he goes for a bushwalk. And during this bushwalk, he kind of comes across many crazy characters.
Yeah.
But then he thinks someone's following him that never shows up so he can see someone following him, like, on the track, but he can't kind of make out the details of it. But every time he arrives at the hut, that person never arrives.
And the TV project, I watched the first couple, and I mean, this. I hope this is said to you a lot, and you go, "Oh, it's bloody again." Kind of, you know the story of Peter Plumley Walker? It's got a Peter Plumley Walker-esque vibe. Did you think of that's an iconic kind of dark tale of New Zealand?
Yes,
again, very local, sort of. I hadn't
fully engaged in that storyline until afterwards, but I loved it.
I sort of mean, well, actually, I need to frame this better. Not necessarily you biting on him by any means, but it speaks to that that long kind of
Yes.
repressed sexual nature of those sorts of people in New Zealand.
I love it.
Yeah. And with those two as examples, the sort of genesis of these is it before I wrote my PhD, I spent ages fretting on what it was going to be about. So let's say hypothetically, someone said, I'll support you if you do a film," but that's happened. But then it came making buttering a sandwich at lunchtime. I decided I knew that thought would be what it was, and that's what it was.
Yeah, great.
So how is that sort of how it works? You go, do you go flash of idea first, or kind of, oh God, I've got another project that I can get greenlit. What the F is it? You know?
Yes.
Yeah.
So the Sextortion, which is the political one, a producer came to me and took me out for coffee and pitched the idea to me, and I said yes. And because you often say yes to projects and they never happen, so I didn't think it would happen. So that was his kind of idea.
It was his idea, and then you wrote it as well as starring in it.
It's all kind of, there's no script, so it was like,
oh really?
Yeah. So we had to just come up with like the gist of. We had to know where it's similar to Curb Your Enthusiasm, if you're familiar with
totally,
that.
yeah.
Where you've got an idea of what has happened in the scene.
You've got your plot points. You've got your catalyst. You've got your
But the film idea came to me from an image probably years before. It was just like seeing someone in the distance. I felt and unable to see who they are and what their intention is, and then them following you really, I thought was a chilling idea, and so that was just kind of planted away. And then this opportunity came up to do a film.
And then, so with the pretty much what you're saying is improvisational nature of the set.
Yes.
So obviously, you need some structure in place. It's kind of narrative 101.
Yes.
The first things I think of is like, had you worked with those people before? And it's the kind of question of rapport. Like, it would have been a lot of fun if you guys clicked, right? Did you?
Terrifying,
but
it's. Sometimes, it depends on how long we had on the scene.
Yeah.
I knew I'd worked with one of the actors beforehand, and we had a good rapport. And then the other ones just happened to work. I really liked them. If we had a long scene, we could kind of go off on tangents. But we had two directors that were very good at kind of directing us.
Judd Apatow's famous for that as well.
For but not as loosely framed as you describe, but certainly a script that often he's written, right? Because then you get people like someone like a Woody Allen, who apparently is just like, these are the lines, this is the punctuation. But there must be some kind of pressure there, right, to nail it, or is there just hours of both hilarious and terrible outtakes? Yeah.
There's
that kind of stuff, and it's also like, that's funny, but it's not driving the story and plot and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And in the end, because that was the project that I finished the day before lockdown, we had to get 4 days into 2 days, and like at the end, the director was basically like, just, you have to say this line to make the story work.
Yeah, right.
Have to deliver
putting all the last bits of kind of glue in place, and like, I think with anything creative, like, your work's never done, so I'd imagine that really would have like further honed your performance in a big way.
Yeah, absolutely.
You happy with it? I'm
3/4 happy with it.
Yeah, good. Yeah. First TV project, like kind of. I mean, I know you've been. That's right, Shortland Street, the iconic Shortland Street.
Yeah, of course.
You were more than a walk on, right? You ended up becoming a character.
I did 2 weeks 1 year. The next year I did 4.
You were supposed to be sinister, but they thought you were too funny.
Yeah.
Who was it? I've watched it for years, but it's iconic.
He was a villain. He was like a stalker that kind of started. He became obsessed with the plastic surgeon.
Yeah. And how long did he last?
The plastic surgeon left left before I did.
No, your character.
My character came back, so he came back 3 times.
Yeah.
So he still potentially could come back again. Last time he came back, he was in East.
I love it. So there you go. I'd start, if things ever get a little bit tough, that's the great thing. Just go, hey, what about Told? I think it's time he came back into that.
Exactly.
And so that's another thing. I don't think a lot of people know the production process of Shortland Street unless they're industry people. My understanding is that's another really get your chops style of production, because they have to just turn over so many, right?
Correct.
So it's like it's live editing, which is uncommon, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. And it's also there's been a culture shift where they've because I'm useless at lines, and
they've got to learn them so quick. But
and they were never there, and I'd be walking around the hallways whenever I got an opportunity, just desperately drilling the lines. And I was never really comfortable with them. But the good thing about Shortland Street is they became much more relaxed about, you just say if you're struggling with it, just say the gist of it. We'll just kind of make it
just
more
what
organic.
funny. That's full circle. That's just what we've been talking about. But yeah, whether you say the gist of it or say it, don't do 10 takes because we've got to get this done and move on to the next part. Yeah. You think about those like lifers on like, oh God, I mean, since I was a little boy, like, I hope she's still alive on Coronation Street. Is Deirdre Barlow still around? But a lot of those people who've like...
No, she's passed away.
Oh,
yeah, just passed away.
Some of them are still... Who's still around?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, you must... Like, do you think you'd start to, like the line between you and Bet the barmaid would blur?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, well, on Shortland Street's the only one I can kind of observe in real life, and the characters are they are one and the same essentially, just slightly heightened versions of yourself.
Who's the really long-term one? Chris Warner?
Yeah, that's
Is
right.
he still
Michael
there?
Gavin. Yeah, he's still there.
It's a funny show. It's like one of those things that people it still gets really good ratings.
Exactly.
But if I ask my first years, like in a sort of TV related paper I do, like what do you watch? It's never the cool thing to say, but then you show a little bit of it, and suddenly all these plot lines come out in the classroom. Like, oh, okay.
And when I've done it, like the amount of people that you wouldn't have assumed watched it, have sent me messages.
Yeah, that's right. And old Bradley on the Chase rates their tits off, mate.
Yeah.
That's probably the most successful show in New Zealand at the moment, ratings wise.
Really? I didn't know that. That's amazing.
And then I thought about it. I was like, well, I can sit down and watch that with anyone. My nan loves it. My mum likes it.
Yep.
So and so likes it. Another thing I wanted to chat about, because I'm from Wellington and I actually came on up with Jermaine. We did the same degree as you, funnily enough, theatre, a bit at Vic. This is quite an indulgent question because he's got too famous, I don't see him anymore. But did you actually get to work closely with him?
With Jermaine?
Yeah.
Yes.
Nice fella, right?
Yeah. So especially this last season.
Amazing what's happened to those guys, man.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oscars. Well, Oscar for Bread.
Yeah.
But I hung out with... I just have finished filming the Series 3 of Wellington Paranormal, and I got to spend a lot of time with Jermaine and just kind of work him out.
Yeah, there's a side of him that plays quite close to his chest.
Yeah,
He's a lovely man. But speaking of Brett, I don't know if this is odd for a 40-plus-year-old man, but I did fly down specifically to see him with the Muppets.
Yeah, great.
In Wellington,
Good.
and it was one of the best. I've been to so many different shows.
Yeah, good.
It was one of the best things I've seen in my life.
Great.
It was so cool. And they brought them. I don't know if you know how much of Sesame Strike got, all of that stuff. I'm really kind of Henson's in my DNA.
Yeah, great.
But it was really cool. And I just thought, isn't this amazing? This guy is on stage with like these sort of icons of our childhood, and they only did it in Wellington because I think it would have been such a big thing to tour, and the orchestra were really into it. I've got a relative that is in the orchestra, and I've heard him like moan about, I shouldn't really say this, but I bloody had to do something with Selma Another Dub. Don't really like that music, but they all really love the Muppets, right? So it's really good.
Oh God,
so is that show coming back for the Wellington Paranormal?
That's right.
What are you watching from anywhere in the world at the moment, or listening to? You're digging, or maybe you're binging at the moment?
Well, I've only look, this is sad, but I've only just got into South Park. And the genius of
You've
South
got
Park.
a long time to go.
I've just watched season 19. I'm like, this is absolute genius, and this is what I should be aspiring to.
Right, this was going to say that satire is as good as it gets.
Yeah,
right?
Perfect satire.
They say that it's so entrenched now it kind of can't be cancelled, but there's no way it would get greenlit these days.
Yeah,
which is interesting.
I would agree.
I reckon we can finish on up shortly. It's been great, man. Thanks for coming in and saying yes and giving me your time. And
my pleasure.
I was
it's been
like,
great.
This is a man who likes to get things done. A man who says 9 a.m. is the time. It's the earliest time that has been booked, and we still did it despite coronavirus, which is only going to lock us down for 3 more days. But more of an existential question just to kind of end on up with. A lot of your stuff's, I've talked about the localness of it and that I really love that. What and who is New Zealand these days?
Yeah, good call. I think it's oh God, this is such a big up.
No, that's why I put you on.
Yeah, I think it's
a bit harder than South Park.
I think it's like inherently, like we're so entrenched in still and in English history, because so much of the kind of the Great Britain has just influenced us so much, even now.
Yeah.
And I think there's definitely something around being a small country. I think there's a patriotism here especially around like how lockdown kind of went, but also like I think there isn't so much self-hating of New Zealand as there was maybe back in the 90s or something, or cringe or something like that.
Yeah.
But my short answer is, what are New Zealanders? They are people that happen to have New Zealand citizenship.
As committed and non-committed as ever. Hey, you heard it here, everybody. Snapchat killed the cat.
Yeah.
Gutted.
Yeah.
Thank you.